Hello and welcome to this edition of Kids Zone, the Christian education moment not just designed for kids but for the entire family. Today's lesson focuses on this logo that I'm wearing right here on my shirt, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, for it is the day that we celebrate Founders Day, the birthday of our founder, Bishop Richard Allen. The AME Church is such a wonderful, wonderful organization, a wonderful ministry where we are able to connect and gather across so many different spaces. Our church, did you know, is comprised of 39 countries across several different continents at the same time. And people worship God in different languages and in different cultures and style, and still under the same umbrella as the AME Church. But what we wanted to do today to help celebrate and to honor the great leaders and the movement that we have in this great gift called the AME Church is to think about the AME Church's presence here in South Carolina. The AME Church was primarily founded and organized originally in the North, but in 1818, African ancestors were worshiping in white Methodist Episcopal congregations, and there was a great migration as white churches tried to stifle and control African Americans in the South, in South Carolina, and they started forming an African Methodist Episcopal Church and affiliated themselves with the AME Church. And leaders heard about the great explosion of African Methodism that was taking place in South Carolina, that during the time of the slave rebellions and the movement led by Reverend Denmark Vesey, there was great trouble, and people came to move and destroy the movement of churches and the organized churches. And for about 42 years, our churches were, as I like to put it, were worshiping underground. It was hidden because of the other agitators and those who did not want our churches to be organized, because we are an independent church owned and operated by Black people, and that caused a lot of trouble for those who did not want that advancement for our ancestors. But in 1864, the AME Church was officially organized in South Carolina, and the South Carolina Conference was formed in 1865. What I like to think most about our AME Church is its rich history and tradition, particularly as it relates to justice. The Bible talks about justice and God's justice throughout the entire narrative. And in the book of Amos, God speaks to the prophet, and the prophet tells us this scripture. Hear the word of the Lord. It says in Amos, "But let justice roll down the waters and righteousness like a overflowing stream." When I think about our church and thinking about justice, God is always moving like water. And when we allow the justice and the reign of God to become our mission, just like the mission of those who came before us, we move in a way that we operate and see God in the life of the world and see the things that are wrong, and we advocate on the behalf of God, because as God's people, it is God's desire for everyone to be in the right path, in the right places of righteousness, and God moves on the side of those who are suffering. And so our church has always been a church that has helped people in many different ways, and feeding the hungry and clothing the naked. And we have this word that I want to leave you with today: determination. Determination that even when oppression and Jim Crow laws and all types of adversity was held up against us, we still stand 200 years plus as a religious institution, not just one that has buildings, but one that is organized to meet the needs of people, our people, for our people, by our people, and across the United States and abroad. There are many spaces open that are doing the work of ministry right now. And in South Carolina, justice has been a part of the mission of our leaders and our members for all of our time. And we have something to celebrate. Always, each and every day, 365 days, but particularly during Black History Month, as we remember those whose shoulders we stand on. People like Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, people like Reverend Joseph Delaney, people like Reverend Clementa Pinckney, people like all of those pastors and leaders and laypersons and missionaries who are in those congregations, YPDers. And thank you for even a few months ago, you stood with us as we declared for justice to roll in our communities, as we fought and spoke out that Black Lives Matter and that we want justice and equity for all. That's a great thing, that what God gives us, the God of the galaxy, gives us the strength for us to fight and pray and to keep on doing the work of justice. You have to be determined that no matter what comes your way, no matter what problems you face, that the God who is the God who controls it all is working inside of you. And just like God worked on the inside of those leaders before us in this great church, God is still working in us today. And the future holds great for what we shall be as a church, as a ministry for the people of God. How will you take the history of the AME Church and focus on determination for change? I'm Reverend Sam, and this has been your Christian Education Moment. God bless you, and we can't wait to see you again next week.